Hello everyone, welcome to VizConnect, connecting you with the art of data visualization and storytelling. My name is Sagar Kapoor. I am part of customer success team at Tableau. I hope you had a great conference last week, some great content for you. Go ahead, watch it with respect to a role or a particular session you are looking. Some of my favorite were Tips and Tricks by Jeffrey Schaefer and Lorna Brown. And also, you can't miss the Iron Whisk competition. So go ahead, watch all the videos on the Tableau website on demand. So data literacy is one of the core ingredients of creating a data culture. So Tableau has launched a free e-learning course. Go ahead, enroll yourself, and let us know your feedback. With that, let me go ahead and introduce our speaker. She's a Tableau Zen master and a queen of tips and tricks, Lorna Brown. Lorna is a speeding tipping magician who loves to give back to the community. She started her journey as a part of the Information Labs Data School in 2015. Lorna co-leads two community projects, Workout Wednesday with Zen Master Anna Jackson and Luke Stanke, along with other community members, and Tableau Tip Tuesday with Hall of the Fame Zen Master Andy Gribble. She also co-leads the Northwest UK Tableau user group. With that, Lorna, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Sagar. That was great introduction, so thank you. I'm just going to share my screen so we can get started pretty quickly. Just on that one, I think everyone here has option to leave feedback for people, which means that I can see when you're sort of cheering me on, and those cheers do really help me when I'm doing my speed tips. So if you can find those feedback buttons and just give a reaction to me when I'm doing some tips, something like if you really like the tip or something like that, then we can just carry on, and hopefully I'll get through a majority of these tips. And if you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to contact me. I'm just going to turn my camera off just in case my internet is a little bit sketchy. But without further ado, my name is Lorna Brown, as Sagar just said. I am a Tableau Zen Master and a Tableau Public Ambassador, and I am a Tableau and Alteryx consultant here at the Information Lab. And you can find me on Twitter at _Lorna_Brown. So are we ready for these speed tips? Let's go. So the first one is the new data model, which was brought out in 2020.2, and 2020.3 allowed you for more of those data model relationships. So for example, here we have a specific month of our order dates, and we want to find out the category targets and to see whether it's above or below. Now in my data source, I have my monthly targets, and I also have my Superstore sales. So what I can do is if I drag my monthly target to my view, I can create a relationship between these two. So it automatically picks up my subcategory, which is great, but I also want it to pick up my month of order date. So in here, we can create a relationship calculation. If I click on this, what we can say is we want to make sure it's a date field, and we want to do the date trunk of month of order date. So this is just going to roll every order date up to that specific month. I'm going to click OK. And in my monthly targets, I'm going to select my month field. So now we have a relationship based on the subcategory and the month. So now I'm going to close that, and I'm going to go back to my date calculations. So now what I can see is I have two separate tables in my new data model layout. For each table, I have a dimensions section and a measures. If, for example, I knew that sales, or like we had an ID field, was a dimension instead, we can drag and drop, and the dimensions and measures is still there. If you create a calculation that is only relating to a certain table, it will go directly to that table reference. However, if Tableau doesn't know what level of detail you're going down to, it will put it in this kind of no man's land here at the bottom. So it can't compute the profit ratio because it doesn't know what level of detail to do it at until you drag it into your view. So let's say we wanted to add our targets in here. So all I now need to do is I'm going to drag and drop it on here. Not on there, sorry. I want to drag and drop it to the top so we have a dual axes. Make sure those axes are synchronized. And I'm going to then change this to a Gantt versus a bar. So now you can kind of, I'm just going to change these colors a little bit. So our sales can be a lovely gray and our targets can still be the red. And also notice when the Gantt bars, if I make them the size wider, it makes them wider and sort of taller, whereas sometimes they might just be a little bit too thin. So what we can do is if I double click in here and go the average of 100 and add that to size, what this is going to do is it makes the Gantt bar thicker so that you can see it a little bit better. So it's probably a little bit more visually appealing that way. Also, how many of you don't like these reference lines or grid lines and axes rulers? The great way to turn them all off is if you go to Format, Workbook, and in here you have grid lines. Let's turn them off. Also turn those 0 lines off and any of the other things that you would like to turn off in here. It's also great to, if you have a company font or a brand, you can then change the font across the whole workbook so you don't have to then keep doing that every time. Okay, so the next section we have is spatial joins. Now I love being able to show this because I feel like it just gets a lot of the wow factor. So we have two data sets. We have a crime CSV and we also have a shape file. You can find most of the shape files online for your area. This one in particular is crime data for London. So if I just take a look at what's going on with London, I'm just going to double click my latitude, double click my longitude, and then I'm going to, you can kind of see all of the crime areas in here. But if I just filter color by LSOA name, for example, let's just give that a second, you can kind of see inside London that we have all of these individual marks based on crime type. And what I actually really want to know is how many of those fall inside that individual borough name. Now I could stop being lazy and do a calculation which splits out the code away from the name that I want, but I can also use the shapefile. So if I double click my geometry and I grab in there, you can see now we have all of those individual geometries here. So one thing that we can do is if I go to edit this data source, I did this previously because it takes a while to do the extract sometimes. So what we can do is we can use a join calculation called make point. And what make point does is it gives it a geometric field within your data set. So if you do make point latitude and longitude, we then select intersects the geometry. So anything from that latitude and longitude that sits inside that geometry shape will then map to that specific geometry. So if I go to my number of crimes now, if I double click my geometry, I can then option drag the crime ID and do count distinct. And this is, I just need to put name onto detail. And now we can see that Westminster had the most amount of crimes in this particular month of our data set. And we can kind of see the lowest area was the City of London based on probably its size of data. But it's good to be able to map those and do those spatial joins in Tableau. The other side of things is doing what I like to call the radial calculation. So in here, we have a make point of Buckingham Palace. So these are the latitude and longitudes of Buckingham Palace. And we also have that crime point. So the crime point is make point, latitude and longitude to give us that geometric field. So what we can do is we can create something called a distance calculation. So if I just scroll in a little bit and go distance, not that one, sorry, distance. And what you want to do here is you want to say, where do you want it going from? So we want the crime point to go from Buckingham Palace. we want it to go to the crime point. Let's just make that in there. And then the final section is what do we want to do it in. So for this particular example, I'm just going to do miles. So MI for miles. I'm going to click OK. And now from here, what I want to do is I want to say I want it 5 miles outside of the Buckingham Palace. So I'm going to drag that to my filters. And once that loads, I'm going to say maximum 5. Click OK. And what this is going to do is it's going to zoom in and create that nice radial sort of map around where my Buckingham Palace would be. You can change this. You can use a parameter. So if I show you the parameter, we have miles, kilometers, meters, and feet. And within here, we've just made sure that the value represents what it's supposed to be in that parameter side of things. So if I show you the calculation, you'll see now that I've got my start point, my end point, and my parameter instead. So when I switch between the two, it'll then change which type of distance I want to view by. And what I can do with that is I can create bins. So if I create a bin with this, and I want it for the kilometers, I want a bin size of 1. And I'm going to click OK. And then from within here, what we can do, I already have one from earlier, so I'm going to drag that one in and drag that onto color. And what happens is it creates this kind of like a target chart, so I can see all of the individual colors throughout my specific chart type. So I really love doing this, and it kind of just feels like it's just magic by doing it. The other thing that we can do is we can use the density mark. So instead of these circles, I don't really know where the kind of hotspots are within this map because it's all just so dense. If I go to the marked card and change to density, you can kind of see that the main area within this is sort of central London-ish. So you'll be able to pick up other hotspots as well. So over in Camden and over in the City of London. So yeah, it just depends on what type of view you're looking for. And finally, one of the other things that's great with the mapping functionality is using make line. Now, for those that have been around for a very long time with Tableau, when you wanted to create what's called a hub and spoke map, you had to do some data prep and union the data, and it was just so much of a faff. Whereas now, this particular option allows you to do that pretty quickly. So in this data set, I have Ed Sheeran's tour locations. Again, we're using that make point line, which is what we've previously mentioned. I also have his home point. Now, I'm not a stalker, I do promise. This is just his hometown, where he's originally from. So we have the make point, home latitude, and home longitude within our data set. Now, to do the make line, all we need to do is if I type in here, make line, if I click on this, I can also see what's happening over in the right-hand side. So make line, I need the start and an end. So we want to start at his home point and go to his tour location. So if I click OK, this now makes a new geometric field. And if I double click on this, it automatically creates the arcing hub and spoke map. So it allows for the curvature of the world. So it gives you that arc effect. And notice how it's all in one big block. That's just because we haven't told Tableau how to split it out. So we probably want to add some detail to this so that we can get individual lines there to be able to see whereabouts he's gone on tour. Okay, so most of that I did at TC-ish, but this section is all about set actions. Now, there's been a recent update to set actions, and this was part of a Workout Wednesday, which is one of the community projects I run. And I basically wanted to use this as just some examples and to get people to understand sets and set actions. Now, my colleague at the Information Lab, Bethany Fox, taught it in such a way that it stuck with me. Think of sets as in and out of your basket. So why not do pizza toppings? So for this example, if I click on classic, it's going to add it. And if I remove Italian style, click on Italian style over there, it's going to remove my Italian style. But there's lots of different tips and tricks within this specific dashboard. So the first one is this set action, to be able to click on something and add it to my overall basket. So if I go to my example sheet, the first thing I'm going to do is there's lots of different ways you can create a set. So actually I'm going to click on my product, create set. And in here, I'm just going to call this product set. I'm going to just click a few different things. Click OK. And now when I add that to color, you'll see that I have some that are in and some that are out. The set action now, so if I go to worksheet and actions, and I add an action and change set values. Just a quick tip again on this, if you do it within your worksheet, then you add it to your dashboard, it doesn't really stick. So you then have to recreate it with your dashboard actions. But you can change this to be to your data source. So if I changed it to my data source, it would then, whenever that data source is used, it would use this set action. But for now, I'm just going to keep it as this specific sheet. So I'm going to just call this add to basket. And my basket is now that product set. So what we're going to do is we're going to, this bottom section, we're going to tell Tableau what to do. So we want to select the data source and the set that we're going to be updating. So it's our product set. And running the action will, so basically when you click on a particular product, it's either going to only assign that single value, unless you multi-select, add the values to set, which means it'll continually add onto the set itself so that you can end up with all items in your set, or you can have the remove values from set. The next section is clearing the selection. So once you click off it, what do you want Tableau to do with that set? If you say add all values to set, that means it's going to put every single product back in our product set. Keep set values will keep what you've just selected and added in. And remove all values means that it'll just wipe the set and start from fresh. So for this particular one, I'm going to add values to set and keep set values. So I'm going to click OK and click OK again. So now when I click on my large pizza, you'll see that it's now gone blue. And when I click off it, it also stays blue. So this is how you're able to do your set actions. So again, if I also want a personal pizza, I can click on it and this will allow you to use that set action in here. But what happens if, for example, I get all this way and I have all of my pizza toppings in, but then I change my mind and I want to remove one? Now, the way I've done it in my dashboard is I've added a list of items to remove. So I can now click no source and that goes away. I can remove my classic and that also goes away. So I'm just going to duplicate this. And I'm just going to keep that one there. So we're going to go back to my worksheet actions. And on this particular action, I'm going to edit this one and just call remove from basket. So again, we're going to do it on the select from sheet 1 to my product set. This time we're going to say remove values from set. And again, we're going to clear the action and that's going to say keep set values. So whenever you click off, it'll just keep what's in your set. So now if I click OK and I say I don't want any of them, it's going to remove them by taking them out, turning them grey. And when I click off it, it'll keep them nicely removed. So I can remove any items in here. When I go back to my other sheet, it'll also transfer that over because you're using the same set to add and remove from your data set. So hopefully that gives you a great insight on how to use these set actions. One of the other things you may have noticed in the dashboard is whenever I click on something, it doesn't really grey out the rest of them. which is a neat little trick to be able to do. So again, if I go into here, you'll see everything else grays out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new field and just call this highlight. I'm going to drag it to my measures and my dimensions over in the left and just click so it's accepted. So it's created a new calculated field. If I now go to Worksheet, Actions, this time I'm going to add a highlight action. In my Set Actions sheet, I'm going to say Selected Fields, but just on this particular highlight action. So, and I click OK, OK again. So now when I click on adding ham, it then doesn't grey out the rest of the particular worksheet because we have this hidden highlight action on. Yes, it has the black bar around it, but it doesn't grey out everything else. So I think that's a win in this particular example. So yeah, that's how you do set actions, and you can find this Workout Wednesday at week 25 if you want to give it a go as well. So another one that was inspired by my Workout Wednesday is when I have a rank over time, if I wanted to just filter to the top 10, so if I go filter and do 10, watch what happens to this blue line, which is appliances. You'll see that, let me just highlight that, appliances doesn't have an April 2020 because it drops out of the top 10. And this means that my lines connect, and I don't really want them to connect because it did drop out. And also with this one, for example, this supplies, it's clearly dropped out of the top 10 from January 2020 to September. But how is it showing that it's just a single line? You'd think you'd be able to go in and format and go to pane and remove this break lines, but no, it doesn't work. So what I did was I created a new calculation and just call this sales at top 10 sales rank. And I basically said, if the sales rank is less than or equal to 10, then give me back the sales rank, else null. Or you can leave it as that and just end it with an end. I'm going to click OK. And now when I drag that in, it'll break for a moment. And let me just reverse this axis again. You can see the line is still connected, but we still have this filter. If I remove this filter, my lines now stop connecting, and I have this indicator at the bottom. I can right click and hide my indicator. Now when I click on appliances, I can clearly see when this particular subcategory dropped out of my top 10. And I think that's super powerful for users to be able to see, okay, so this particular product was first, why did it drop out, and where did it drop out, and how comes it's now so low? So it's just a different way of showing your rank over time. Now also to stay with rank as well, let's say we wanted to use parameter actions. Now I want to be able to click on a subcategory and update my top 10 manufacturers. Now if you did that with a filter and I clicked binders, typically that one has now, there we go. So binders is now 5, or it should be rank 5, but because it's filtered out, it's actually saying it's number 1, but we know it's not. So what we can do is now if I use parameter actions instead, oops, sorry about that. Let me just put this one back to full screen. If we use parameter actions instead, this allows us to maintain our rank view. So if I show you how that works, is I basically have each of the accessories, each of the subcategories, and I have a parameter here. Whenever something is clicked, so on the dashboard, if I clicked appliances, this would then update to appliances. And what we want to do is we want to create that true false for rank. And we just want to say, does the subcategory equal the subcategory parameter? True, false. Then what I can do is I can add it into my view. And notice how now my binders goes back to 1. But if I go to my subcategory rank calculation and edit, what I can do is I can add this back into my calculation. So it kind of ignores that true false. And then from here, I right click and I hide any falses. So it only brings me back that specific calculation, which is binders equals 5. Again, if I go back and go copiers, its copiers is 8. And I go back to my sheet that I've just selected, copiers is rank number 8. So this gives you a way to be able to maintain that rank, and hiding data is probably not best practice, but it's super useful for table calculations. To get the data back, you right click, show hidden data, or you go to analysis and reveal hidden data as well. So it just depends on where you want to do and what you want to hide. I've gone over the false highlighting. So dynamic reference lines. So what we can do here is, let's say we have our profit and our sales calculation. So parameters, sorry, but I want to update these, and then I want to color each one of the quadrants to say whether it's above or below. So I want to click on this mark and it'll update that particular reference line with the values. So I'm going to go to worksheet actions, and in here we're going to add a parameter action this time. I'm going to call this sales. Always make sure you give your actions a name so you can refer back to them in the future. I'm going to say I want it to update my sales value based on the sum of sales, which is in my view. And I'm going to keep when I click off the point, it's then going to keep the current value. Okay, and click OK again. And what this is going to do is watch this line move. It now moves to where it needs to be because we've changed our sales value. We can do the same with profit. So I'm going to go worksheet actions, add action, change parameter values, and in here we're going to say profit. Make sure you select the profit field. I'm going to call this profit. Click OK and OK again. And now when we change it, our profit line moves and also our sales line move. So you can now create calculations which say, is it above or below that particular category? And I don't think I have that one already made. So unfortunately, we will leave that one because it might take a little bit too long. But yeah, it's a great way to be able to do that with parameters and parameter actions. You can also do the same with dates. So if I wanted to just highlight these particular dates, you can see that it changes to my true false. Now the way this is done, we have a start date and an end date parameter. And if I go to my worksheet and actions, you'll see what I've done. So I'm going to edit my start. So this time we want to choose the parameter which is start date, keep set current value, and we want the month and the minimum value. And you've probably guessed it, the end one is the maximum value. So I'm going to click OK and OK. And again, that calculation is, if I just show you that, where has that gone? There we go. It's just basically saying, is the month of order date greater than the start date? And is the month of order date less than the end date? So now when I hover and I highlight a range, it'll give me the minimum and the maximum, and it'll highlight that. You can then also use this in future calculations. So you can say, what was the sales value between this range compared to last year or something like that. Dynamic dates. This one is such a cool tip, if I do say so myself. But if you have a parameter based on all of your dates in your data, you probably don't want to see everything back to 2017, and you just really want to focus on this year. So what we can do is we can create a calculation and we just call it dates this year. We want to say the date trunk of year of the order date. Oh, sorry, not that one. And then we want to say it's less than or equal to the date trunk of the year of today. Just be careful when you are using today, because if we roll over to 2021, the dates are going to change. So we want to say, if that equals that, then bring me back this order date months. Else, and then just end it with an end. I'm going to click OK. You'll see we have this date field. I'm going to option drag that into my view. Just choose discrete. And now you can see that this calculation has not worked. So not that one. Let me duplicate that. We want it to say equals, sorry, it's not greater than, it's equals that. So now you can see we've pulled back all of our 2020 dates. But if we only want to bring back the current month and we're in October, we can then create a current month calculation, which is the date trunk month of order date equals the date trunk month of today. So this will bring back just our current month. And again, I can, we need to do an if statement. So if that equals that, then bring back the order date months. And click OK. I'm going to option drag that into my view so you can see what's happening. You'll now see that it only brings back October. If I go to edit my parameter in here, we can add, we change it to when workbook opens. We want to change it to dates this year. So it's only going to bring back my 2020 dates. And also change this when value when workbook opens. And in here, we want this to actually say the current month. So let me just add, that's not quite doing what I want it to do. So if I edit this and let's change it to fixed to dates this year. It normally allows me to add in that particular current value, and I'm not sure why it's not doing that. So let's wrap this in a fix. Oh, and my timer is up. So let me just finish this one up. So now it's going across all of my dates. And if I go to edit my parameter, I can now pick my current month, which is across all of them. And so it'll automatically default to the current month, but you still have the option to pick for the rest of the months. Now, I didn't get through most of my tips there, but I hope it's given you a bit more of an insight into some of the tips and a bit more detail of those. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to speak again. I love doing tips and tricks because I think people can get a lot from it and learn straight away. So again, thank you very much. And if you do want the recording, I'm sure Sagar will send that out, but also from TC-ish, there's a lot more tips from myself and Jeff Schaefer. So please do check those out, and you can follow me at _Lorna_Brown. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorna.